protecting our wetland areas is one of the very best ways that we can protect the wildlife in our state, which, as you say, is extraordinary. West Virginia is really blessed with a lot of forested habitats, a lot of intact habitats. And so we have lots of wild plants and animals living in those habitats. Wetlands make up less than 1% of our land surface in West Virginia. You know, we're a mountain state. There isn't a lot of flat land. And what flat land there is has often been developed, and the wetlands have been filled in or destroyed. And we've probably lost between 80 and 90% of our wetlands since European settlers came to the state a few hundred years ago. On that 1%, or less than 1% of our land surface, 23%, almost 1/4 of our species make their home. And 44%, nearly half of our rare species, are dependent on wetland habitats. So if you can imagine all of those species just crowded onto that little tiny space, you can see how important it is to protect our wetland habitats. There are many species that use wetland habitats for breeding, like our frogs, salamanders, birds. They absolutely rely on these little wet places where it's harder for predators to move because it's wet. People tend not to disturb them, again, because it's wet, it's not so easy. They tend to be kind of a tangle of chaotic vegetation, which means lots of different kinds of plants and lots of little niches, environmental niches, for the plants to grow and for the animals that eat those plants or use those plants as home, like the butterflies and bees and dragonflies and damselflies, lots of places for them to make their homes, all in very close proximity, but not interfering with one another because there's so many different niches. So as we're walking through a wetland, you may say, oh my goodness, I can hardly walk through this. I've got to step over these logs and crouch under these bushes. Every one of those spots is home or food for some wildlife species. Even with state-of-the-art technology, it's very difficult to see the really small wetlands that are underneath a forest canopy. But we'll probably have maps that are twice as good as what we had before. And that will bring us really a huge leap forward. And another reason that we want these updated maps is that we now have a mapping tool that we use that allows us to estimate the functions of wetlands across the whole state. And it's based on our wetland maps. So the better the wetland maps are, the better idea we have of how every single wetland, like the one in your neighborhood or backyard, is providing flood attenuation and clean water benefits and wildlife habitat to the citizens of West Virginia. We're going to be starting a vernal pool citizen science monitoring program. So that means anybody who might be interested in helping the frogs and salamanders of our state have a good, stable home for the future, they can get involved in this program. We can help them find vernal pools near where they live, or they may help us find those vernal pools. And then we'll be photographing the egg masses and identifying the species. This is something you don't need a lot of skill to participate in, basically a camera and a willingness to walk in the woods. And so we'll be hopefully having a whole group of citizen scientists helping us understand the habitats and the risks to amphibian and salamander life in the state, in our vernal pool wetlands.